The whole give it a year. Okay, no big
Mm-hmm.
deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give it a year, a full 12 months, because we don't know otherwise. And that's where we were, until 2018 when we kind of got the, hey, I think it's time to go see a
Mm-hmm.
specialist, and then, kind of got that stamp like
Yes.
infertile. It
Yes.
was like, ooh, that
Mm,
hurt.
mm. Yeah.
What's that
Ooh,
mean? What's next?
that thing is something else. You had fibroids and cysts, right? Did you
Yeah,
get diagnosed at
fibroids.
that point or before?
So I knew about the fibroids previous, and the cysts. Actually, the first thing was the cyst because I was having pain. This is years back. Having pain and didn't know what it was, and kind of let it linger for a little while, and then I couldn't. I like doubled over in the car driving. I was like, "Oh no, what's going on?" And at that point, that's when I found out I had ovarian cyst, and it had gotten so large that it was kind of like twisting the ovary a little bit, and that was the pain that I felt. So that happened first, and from there, the fibroids were obviously seen because I started getting internal ultrasounds, and so that's when it was like, okay, you have, reoccurring fibroids, multiple fibroids. No big deal in terms of, nothing here is telling us that it'll have any effect or anything, that they're not super large. They're manageable at this point. And so, from there, but I always also had painful periods. And so I didn't know until I had surgery years later that I also had endometriosis. And so it was never brought to the table. It was never discussed. It was never even questioned. And so it was cyst, fibroids, and then block tube, surgery, endo. Kind of the order in which those things came about. So yeah.
And I almost kind of feel like, and I don't know if you've seen or kind of felt the same way about those conditions with the fibroids and also the endometriosis. I kind of feel like fibroids are usually the black girl thing,
Yep.
and endometriosis is usually a white girl thing. You know what I mean? And so I don't think that endometriosis is usually presented as an option for testing for a lot of black women in the beginning of
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's going on with their body when they're saying that they're in pain,
And mostly
which is
because you can only find out if you had surgery. And
exactly.
so, a lot of times, well, I remember being told years ago, don't get surgery, don't get cut. If
Mm,
they go in
mm,
there, mess something up. And I
okay.
think that's because for a long time, black women having these kind of elective, if you will, if you want to call it elective surgeries, were very risky, and there weren't enough specialists to know what to do or how to heal. And so they were told things like, "We'll get a hysterectomy." And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
why is that the only option that we're giving women of
Mm-hmm.
color when they have any type of issues in that space? And so I
Yeah.
think for a lot of, women, moms, aunties, grandmas, whatever, it's kind of like, don't get surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have them go in there. Don't have them mess around with your reproductive stuff until you have kids. Wait till after you have kids. And I understood where they were coming from after doing some
After everything,
research
right?
from
Yeah.
what their perspective was. But I also knew that there were different methods now, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
more, thank God, technology and other options. But, it's really hard to diagnose. And I think another thing is that, black women's pain is not as commonly taken seriously. We all have heard that. And we probably all at one point in time felt that with some kind of medical doctor. Maybe it's not
Yeah.
fertility, it's something else. But,
Yeah.
our pain isn't taken as seriously. And so when you're telling them, no, but like, I can't go to work, or like, I'm bleeding through pads, tear pants, or like you're telling them, hey, I physically feel most of the
Mm-hmm.
month something's not right there. And so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like you have to find someone that for what you have going. What I was I'm 33, almost 34. It took me
Mm-hmm.
until 30 to be diagnosed with endometriosis because of a surgery that wasn't even for that. So it happens often, and I keep hearing it more and more and more. And now that I'm in different spaces, like we are in the
Exactly.
podcast space,
Exactly.
or like following people like Indo Black, which is a great organization, following
Yes.
them, it's like,
Yes.
wow, we out here. It's
And I
It's
only just found
real.
them a year ago.
Me too.
Okay.
Last year.
That's
Last
it.
year I found them, you know? So, but we're in this space and we're suffering
Exactly.
and now we're all talking about it and it's wonderful. But for some, it's too late,
Much
you
too late.
know,
Much too late. And hysterectomy is the only way to heal or to go about some form of healing.
to
Unfortunately.
cure, if you
Yeah.
will, right?
And I heard the same thing from family when they say, don't get that surgery, girl. Make sure you have a kid first. Get a kid out first. If you're married. And then you had that surgery, okay? Heard the same thing. But until my mother had to go through the fibroid thing. And then it became a whole different story. My mom was like, look, you don't necessarily have to let them take your whole uterus.
Right.
But if there's ever an issue, let them do what needs to be done because this pain I wouldn't wish on
Yeah.
anybody, you know,
Yeah.
and of course we wouldn't. And so you coming out of surgery and then they tell you about this endometriosis. Did you even know what endometriosis was
I'm
prior?
gonna be honest, I had heard of it, but I think I mentioned before in another podcast that my husband was the first one to mention that to me and say, "Do you think you have this?" And I was like, "I don't know," because
Let me find
he
out
has
how we went
saw.
down the Google rabbit hole. Let me find out.
First of all, he's been very good about that. Like he has gone down lots of Google rabbit holes for
Yes, I love
me, and
it.
he'll bring
I
up
love it.
articles and like share stuff.
Yeah.
He's been great, but like
Oh,
he had saw so many of the TV ads for it, so he was
okay.
like,
Okay.
"That sounds like you," and I was like,
Sound a little
I mean,
endo-ish.
it does,
Yeah.
but I feel like at this point in my life, somebody would have mentioned it to me if I could have had it, right? Like, how come
Right.
no one brought it up? And I've had
Exactly.
some great doctors, some great OBGYNs, a black female OBGYN who's been fantastic, but she ain't never said, check this out, or what you think about
Right.
this. And so he brought it up. I kind of brushed it off at that point and kept moving forward. But yeah, after the surgery, I mean, it made sense. It was just
It
like,
made total sense. Yeah.
all these common symptoms made sense. I could check, several off the list. And what they said was that the tube, so I had a blocked tube.
Okay.
And so they had said, like, that tube on that side was just endo-ridden. And so that caused it to be blocked. And it wasn't a case of being unblocked. Sometimes they say tubes might be able to be unblocked through different
Yeah.
remedies or different things. But they're like, we're pretty sure this is not going to be an unblockable tube. So let's take it out because if you don't need it, it could hamper, verse help. So let's take it out. So when they went and they removed the tube, saw the endo, they were able to, I think, take away some of the other endo on the other side. But as we all know with that disease, it's reoccurring. As we mentioned, unless you have surgery, and even with surgery, it tends to, and I mean, I haven't heard otherwise, it will come back. It's not going to just stop. So unless you, said get a full hysterectomy or you're during pregnancy, when you're not having your cycle, it's going to come back, and it's just what it is. It's a chronic illness or disease because there's no
Yeah.
cure for it. And it's going to come back, but it made sense, and I think I was a little upset that it hadn't come up sooner. I was like, wow, maybe I could have saved my tube.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing good and well, I only need one to naturally conceive, and I don't need either if I do IVF. So, yeah, it's not the end of the world. But in that moment, it kind of felt like it
Oh,
was.
it's
Because I feel like
devastating.
I
Yeah.
lost a part of my reproductive system. And I was like, well, the other tube is now, it's open, the other one, but we don't really know what kind of quality it is. And you really just don't know that until you start trying again.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went through being upset about it, being mad it wasn't brought up sooner. But then I was like reinvigorated to like start trying again. I know I had to like, heal and all of that, but I was like, okay, surely now we got that out the way, remove some fibroids. We
We
ready to
cleaning it
go.
up, baby. Yeah.
Right, we
We
cleaned up in
ready.
here. We're
We're
ready to
ready.
go.
Yes.
And then we started doing IUIs and nothing was happening. So that was frustrating and sad,
Yeah.
you
And you
know.
were doing medicated cycles, right?
Yeah, I started with those. I think that's kind of everyone's like gateway drug is like Clomid.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? I can't think of what the name of it is.
I can't remember the name of it is, but
But
is the most common
yeah,
one for
yeah.
everybody with any condition. Yeah, for
Right,
sure.
start McClellan, then we did the other one, and then we got, and then he said, well, we've done, you shouldn't do, too many of these,
Yeah.
medicated cycles. So that's when we went into surgery, and then got out of that and came back. That was all 2019. And so I took a
Mm-hmm.
break. It was good timing. I took a break. We had, wedding coming up and all of that. So took my
Yeah.
break, enjoyed the rest of my 2019. And when I came back in 2020, like ready to go, my doctor had retired. And I had no idea. And I
Mm.
was like, dang,
Heck on it.
we gotta
Right.
start
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah. The
Like,
audacity to just leave me
okay,
like
and not
this and
tell
didn't even
me.
send me a
How
letter.
dare you not
Okay.
tell me? I ain't get a letter, nothing. So I was like, well,
Exactly.
congrats to him, whatever.
Yeah.
But ended up getting a really amazing female specialist,
Wonderful.
and she's been great ever since. So,
Yeah.
all things for a reason, but she's been fantastic. Same practice, but different doctor.
Gotcha. Gotcha. At least you can go to the same building and that
Yes.
familiarity is there
Yeah.
with all the
It
staff and the nurses
helps.
and such. It helps. It helps a
Yeah,
lot when
it
they know you, they know
does.
your protocol and such, even if the doctor's still learning,
Yep.
for sure, for
Yep.
sure.